Let's go live with Jack Kelly. Welcome to the one-of-a-kind LinkedIn live show that will help you with your job search and advancing your career. We will bring in educated career experts who will share their insights and give you inside tips on how to be successful in your job search. Now let's get into today's show with your host, Jack Kelly.
Okay, are we live yet, Christine, or?
Haven't gotten the notification yet. One second. Okay, you're live.
All right, here we go. So Shelly, and it's Elsliger, right? Do I pronounce it?
Elsliger, no N.
Wait, say that again. Elsliger.
Elsliger, yes.
Are you sure it doesn't have an N? I think
it doesn't have an N. I'm pretty sure.
No, can't do that. All right. So Shelly, welcome to Let's Go Live with Jack Kelly. I'm so excited to have you on here. You're like Ms. LinkedIn, right? Like Queen of LinkedIn, if I understand correctly. Is that the case?
Pardon?
So it's like you're like the queen of LinkedIn. This is your passion, huh? Your medium.
I'll take it. Yeah.
So maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we can kind of really have a whole bunch of good questions for you if it's okay.
So I'm a career specialist at University of Toronto, and I also have my own business called LinkedIn Express. I try to put the two together because I'm really passionate and very passionate about using LinkedIn for job search and community building. And so I like to think that those two things, the career side of things and the LinkedIn side of things, I marry the two and, hope for the best and hope that students and a lot of people, actually everybody that I can influence will have these LinkedIn aha moments, because I really do think it's the way to go. And especially through COVID, we've seen LinkedIn become more popular, more active, and the catalyst for helping people reach their goals.
What brought you to LinkedIn? And because there's so many other social media platforms.
So I was at another university prior to this in Montreal, and I was there for quite a while. And I always was, I guess I got on LinkedIn very early in time when it started. I was on there, but not really using it like I do now, obviously. But I had this affinity for LinkedIn. I felt that there was so much I could do with it, and I started early on to network. And then in about 11 years ago, actually it's 11 years ago this month, I applied to an educational conference in Calgary, and the LinkedIn table, they were there, they had a booth there, and I hung out there quite a bit. And so at one point there was this little pause, how you have a break, and we all went to the local Starbucks, and I saw the person from the table in line, and he had this jacket on, and it was bright red with the blue LinkedIn on the side. And I pondered for a minute why he had a red jacket on, why wasn't it blue? But anyway, I decided, he ordered a latte, and I decided to pay it forward. So I paid for his latte, and he said, "Oh, you've been hanging out at the LinkedIn table quite a bit." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, why don't we just take a break and sit down? I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to know more about you. I'd love to know what I don't know, I'd just love to know more about you and, why you're so passionate about LinkedIn." And I said, "Okay, let's do this." So we both had a latte. We started to talk. I told him how, I was using LinkedIn quite a bit at the university, but that I really, really wanted to use it as an empowerment tool. And I was hoping to really use it to help women and help women raise up and tell their story online. And I told him all of this stuff, and I don't even remember, but all of a sudden 2 hours passed. And he said, "Well, I have to introduce you to a few people." And he'd introduced me to the right people. And then on my way back from Calgary, after hanging out at the LinkedIn table some more, I ended up coming back and met up with those people and got some training and ended up becoming a speaker, and the rest is history. I never looked back, and that person became my mentor and is still my mentor today. No longer works at LinkedIn, but it was such a powerful moment. And that's why I have a lot of LinkedIn lattes became my thing after that moment. And I've never looked back. And LinkedIn is such a place not only for myself, but just in everything I do, whether it's working with young students or not, well, they're not that young, but they're in the midst of crossing over from university to into their careers, or whether I'm working with women or CEOs or any professionals that really want to get ahead in life. I see LinkedIn as the perfect opportunity and the perfect catalyst for not only reaching your goals, but for exercising your social reciprocity muscles, which is what I feel is what we need to do to have real success and happiness along the way.
That's interesting. At first, I'm sorry that I sprung a guest star on the show. That I wasn't expecting Jingles to pop on here.
I love Jingles.
We have Shelly. We have 2 cats and 2 dogs, and the 2 dogs. Because, all right, can I go on a tangent? Do you mind? So,
no, because I have 2 dogs right at my feet.
Okay, so you could. All right, so here, all right, you can understand. So my daughter's in college, and she's getting her vaccine shots, and she has a little allergy, so she was a little worried. So my wife went down with her to stay and just watch to make sure she's okay. And then she didn't trust my son is with me, even though he's in college, he's at home now because like the college is all virtual online. So I guess she didn't trust me and my son watching the dogs and the cats. So we dropped off the dogs at like doggy daycare. I don't know if you ever have your dogs there. So they're there. Now Jingles loves playing with the dogs because Jingles thinks he's a dog. And so without the dogs, he's like, you can see, he's just like, hey, I have no one to play with. I need a friend. So yeah, so that's what's happening here. All right.
Well, he's great. Jingles, welcome.
So sorry about that for springing a guest, but that's yeah. You know what though? This is what's so interesting about the pandemic. If you could say there's interesting things about a pandemic, is the curtain is pulled back on a lot of things, right? Like you don't have the stuffiness that you usually have pre-COVID, you know? And then I think you just learn more about people and you see their real lives, which I don't know about you, that's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting.
I actually love that part of, you know, I mean, we've had a lot of challenges through COVID, but that's one of the things that I think is great. Like I used to worry about my dogs and, you know, it's just, they're here, they could bark at any minute, but
exactly.
I mean, it's part of my life through COVID, right? So I've just gotten used to it, but I think there's a beauty actually in it.
I think so too, because like a year and a half, let's say a year plus ago, you would have been mortified if you're on this business call and your dog start barking and you're like, oh my God, Straw, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know what I mean? And it'd be so comfortable and walking. Now it's like, oh, hey, what kind of dogs do you have? Oh, I have one too. It's almost like an icebreaker and makes everybody a little bit more human to connect.
Yeah, I think it's great actually, because we want to get to know people. I mean, even on LinkedIn, I mean, there's that hashtag LinkedIn Human. I mean, that's all about, we want to know the people behind the titles. So like Jingles is part of your life. So I mean, it gives insight into you being an animal lover, and I'm an animal lover. So like, that's something I didn't know about you, but I think it's like, it draws us together because it's a common thing that we both feel is important to us, right?
Because people are going to be watching this and rewatch this because we can talk about otherwise I would ask, oh, what kind of dogs you have? Because I would be really interested in talking about, but we won't to death about that. But you know what was interesting? One of the things that really kind of stood out in what you're talking about is just the serendipity of things. You happen to be at a certain place, meet a certain person at that, particular time, had a latte. And I wonder sometimes in life, if you don't have that kind of impromptu, just stumble into something and it kind of breaks your way.
Well, there's that whole thing about happenstance, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, when I look back and I tell my story quite often, because even when I'm in speaking engagements, people like to hear the story. So I don't know. And because of that meeting, it kind of positioned me where I wanted to take LinkedIn, because I didn't want to just be a trainer that thought about like, oh, here's how you're going to build your profile. Here's what, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do this, this, this. Of course, I bring those aspects into my training, but my training goes way beyond that, because I think that if you put together the greatest profile, but you don't know what to do next, and I really focus on next, then your profile will just be there and it'll end up in LinkedIn la la land kind of thing.
So let's talk about that then. I was going to ask you about, because it's really, and we could put it on for later, about, the kindness campaign you have, the we could talk about that a little bit, but since you kind of brought this up, my take on it, and I'm curious what you see in Canada, but here in the States, it does look, knock on wood, that things are starting to pick up. We have the Department of Labor reported last month in March that almost 1 million people got new jobs. You hear that Goldman Sachs is saying there's going to be a hiring boom. JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon, CEO, was saying, hey, we're going to be in a Goldilocks economy. And you're starting to see it. And like even on LinkedIn, for a long time, I didn't see too many people having those, hey, congratulations, so-and-so got a job. Now I'm seeing it more often. So for people, and first of all, in Canada, are you seeing the same kind of things I'm seeing here in the US?
So I think December and January is where things took a really big dip, probably the lowest dip in terms of unemployment. And I think women were definitely affected because retail was affected in some of those other areas. And, more women are in retail. So I think they got affected by that. And then I think generally people just had to adapt to online. And I think it took a while for some companies, but definitely it's going up. And we see that at the university. We see the number of jobs that are being offered to students are going up. They might have taken a little bit of a decline when companies were going through that whole, what do we do now? How do we change the way that we reach out? How do we do recruitment? But I think that what I've seen is that it's starting to go up. I see on LinkedIn, there's even something that pops up all the time, and it says Canadian companies hiring in Canada, and then it will give you a list, and this list has gone from here to probably.
I haven't seen that. Is that a feature for every place, or do you have?
It's like kind of almost like not like a newsletter kind of, but not like a newsletter where people can contribute to it. So it's one of those features that you have. And then it comes out it's by LinkedIn. And then it comes out and it says Canadian companies that are hiring. And so I'm always paying that forward to people, because honestly, when they started, the list was like so small, and now it's it's growing so big. So I always feel like, oh, I have to pay this forward. So I'm always paying the list forward. I'll send you a copy of it.
Yeah. How can people who are watching and rewatch it later, how can they find? I know when we reset it up, but like, is there an easy way to find it on LinkedIn, or?
It actually pops up on my site. So if you look on your right hand of LinkedIn when you're on the platform, it will give you like things that are occurring right now. There's usually something about COVID. Right. There's probably about 8 different topics, and this topic comes up in my feed. So I don't know if it would come up. It wouldn't come up necessarily on everybody's feed, because not everybody's feed is going to be the same. How do you say that? Same interests as I have, but because I'm in that career development field, plus I'm, LinkedIn, it makes sense that it shows up on mine. Because what happens is that area on the right, it speaks to your interests. It speaks to where you position yourself on LinkedIn. So those topics. And then I just noticed it one time, and then I went on it and gave some feedback, and and then all of a sudden it comes to me now every second day, and I can see the new companies that are hiring. So it's really been an awesome way to just see the growth after us going through that kind of like dip, and then realizing that so many companies are changing the way that they, number one, hire, but also the positions that they're offering. And like a lot of them are turning to being completely remote for example, where they weren't before, but they're finding that it just works better for them. So it's really interesting to see the changes. And I think in some cases, the changes are good.
Yeah. For people who may have been looking for a long time, here in the States, and I imagine probably similar to Canada, there's a large portion of people who are out of work who are long-term unemployed, who've been out for, I forgot the exact definition, but it's a while out. Those people, and then also those who just, sometimes you know how it is, you just can't catch that right break. Sometimes you meet that person and you have the latte and it all works. Sometimes it's just, you don't. It's almost like, I think sometimes, Shelly, people feel like, oh, I don't want to go down this, this dead end again. What can you say to folks to just get excited again, re-energized, to say, hey, wait, maybe this is for real now. Vaccines are being distributed, the economy is getting better. Here, let's say in the US, states are reopening a little bit more. Is there any advice you could give to folks, like what they could do on LinkedIn to kind of turbocharge it down? Like maybe as getting closer to making something happen.
So I think a lot of people get set in their ways. They're used to using the same resume template. They're used to, they build their LinkedIn profile and then they expect they expect miracles to happen overnight, that everybody's going to find their profile. I'm all about changing things up. So the game of recruitment, the game of finding a job has changed. We've all changed through this last year. And I think even prior to that, things were changing with, just technology and AI and, just the way we think. So change things up a little bit. If you had the same resume for a long time, start digging around and find something that really works for you. Do a video resume, do a portfolio. I mean, LinkedIn is a great place now. They have that featured section, which is exactly for that. Showcase what you've done, showcase what you've accomplished, showcase what you feel is important in helping you describe your brand. Do things that you haven't done before. Start reaching out to people. And it may not feel comfortable at first because you haven't been used to doing it, right? So I'm reading a few big books on changing habits, Atomic Habits and how we change. And I'm really grateful that I've been immersing myself into that for the last few months, because I realized that there's some things that I do over and over again, expecting the same results. So it's up to us, but diversifying and changing things can really impact you positively, because you're not doing the same thing. You're changing it up, and change can be really good. So I did that as an experiment. I took the resume that I had for a long, long time, and I decided, Shelly, find something that works for you. Find something that makes you look at that resume and connect with it. Because a resume is hard to connect with. A LinkedIn profile is easier to connect with. But I want, whether it's my LinkedIn profile, my resume, whatever it is now, I want to look at that document or the platform and say, it's really working for me. It is describing me. I fit into this. This is who I am behind the camera. This is who I am behind the screen. This is who I am behind the resume. And so now I've gone from being this kind of like person. I used to have a template. I've gone from template to start figuring out what really represents you. So once you start doing that, and reaching out to people can be so amazing. And it's not easy for everybody to do that. It wasn't easy for me. Now I do it all the time. But it isn't easy to reach out and say, you know something, what you're trying to do is to try to form your own board of directors. I'm a big person in that. The people that I work with, I say, let's form your own board of directors. And those board of directors are going to help you. They're going to support you. And you can be part of somebody else's board of directors. But once you have that, and some members will be more active and some will be less active, but you're consciously creating a community that can help you. And so that can be another thing, just to know that you have the support, but you have to be the one that initiates it.
That's great too. And you just gave so much information. So just to unpack it a little bit, for the first step to reach out, and I agree with you. I think for a lot of people, it's really hard to do. You know, I've been a recruiter for probably going on 25 years now. So I've become very comfortable to reach out to people, talk to people. And I've also become comfortable in getting rejected and failure, because that comes with it. You know what I mean? Where people, I might have a job for you, Shelly, and you're like, thank you, no, thank you. Okay, I move on. You know what I mean? You may get an offer and then you get to take a counter offer and you learn it. But for people who aren't, you know, who every day don't do that, you know what I mean? Reach out, talk to people, schmooze, you know what I mean? Do that thing. It's hard. Like, what's like the first step? Like, is you just send an email? Do you send a message? Do you pick up the phone? Like text?
So there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, I'm not big on email.
Okay.
I'm not, because I feel like, you know, if you really speak from the heart, number one, you have 300 characters to send a really great connection request. That is your first start. So 300 characters is not bad. What I've done is I've made a few little templates for myself, kind of almost as a little elevator pitch. So I sign my name, you know, thank you, Shelly. And then I have about 3 points or 4 points, almost like an elevator pitch, but it's not a pitch. It's just whether people want to read it or not. But I feel like it works for me, and it's so much better than expecting people to, or going after people and wanting them to want what I have. I just do that little template. And then the first few lines, when I'm asking for a connection request, I absolutely have never sent a connection, a general connection request, which is basically nothing, just hitting connect in the last 10 years or 11 years. I always customize everything that I do. And if you want a little hack on your mobile, when you're doing it on your mobile and you're not hitting, don't hit connect, don't get trigger happy, go to more, hit more. It's going to take you down to personalized request. And you actually get more characters when you use your phone. And the other thing that's a lot of people don't know about is that if you are a member of a group, you have the ability to send 15 emails per month to any member that you're not connected with, 15 per month. So it's not from one group, but collectively. After 15, LinkedIn will cut you off. But so say you go into a group and you see somebody that you're, you know, they're active in the group, you see that you want to connect with them. At the end, there's a little, like almost a little email icon. You hit that and you can basically send just a regular email. There's no limitations to your space, and you have 15 per month. So if you really want to, number one, benefit from groups, that's one of the little hacks that not a lot of people know about. And it's for the free account too. A lot of people say, is that just, no, free account, everybody can access and utilize that. So you'll see that little icon, and that's a great way to get to know somebody. And then from there you can say, you know, it's been great chatting with you, let's connect. And then that can help to build your network on LinkedIn. And if you're active in a group, they will see you, and you know, that group brings you together. So there's that commonality there. But that's another hack, a great way to meet people. And it's easier, I think, if you belong to something and there's something that has that kind of foundation to initiate conversation. But yeah, I very rarely use InMails because I feel that if I do a connection request well enough, and if I utilize, you know, the groups that I belong to, and introductions too, that's another way. I mean, any of your second level connections, you can get introduced to them. So if there's somebody that you really know well, and you can ask that person to make an introduction. I mean, introductions are powerful. It's one of the most powerful tools that LinkedIn had right from the beginning, because it's a networking site predominantly. And the whole idea is to use your network to help you connect to other people. So those are 3 ways that I think makes it easier and makes connecting with other people fruitful.
Yeah. So Shelly, when you send out, so you have these, let's say canned kind of emails. And then, so let's say a person is looking for a job in a banking, in a banking organization in Canada. So they'll say, okay, I'll look at CIBC, I'll look at Royal Bank of Canada, BMO, and then target like, okay, I work in compliance, so I'm going to target and find the chief compliance officer. And then you have like the structure, your name and everything, and then just substitute, hey, I'm looking to, move to, Royal Bank of Canada because it's an awesome bank and here's what I do. Is that what you mean? Like you have this kind of set thing?
No, I wouldn't. Okay. No.
You're like, no, that's terrible.
I would never do that. No.
All right. No, that's
first of all,
no bueno.
Maybe not, first of all, maybe not aim that high at the beginning.
Okay.
First of all, and don't ask for favors. They don't know you. You don't know them. Nobody's given out like that anytime. In fact, that if you want a one sure way of not getting a connection, ask for a favor. So I'm
asking these purposely dumb questions for everyone else. It's not that I'm asking dumb questions. I'm just doing I know people want to ask.
We know. Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't ask that. Number one, you want to build a relationship. So I think. So when I'm working with students, I always say to them, I show them how to do an advanced search. And then I'll say, reach out to your target market, meaning alumni, because you can find out what alumni are working in your field. You can find out what alumni are from the university and working in your field. And then there's that connection. So
what would you say to them? Yeah, they're like.
So you could say, I'm from the same university. I saw you online. I'm in my graduating year, really looking forward to going through the recruitment cycle for finance. I see that you're working for, KPMG. Would love to hear a little bit more. And it would be great to have a coffee chat. And, and I'm looking to build my community of alumni. Something like that. You have ample characters, you have a great space there. And most of the time, because you have that university connection in common, there's that already positions you for making that connection in a positive way. And if you are reaching out to somebody, say it's not an alumni, or say it is somebody that this is my idea. Follow that person first. So say there was somebody that you did a search on. You wanted to work at KPMG. I'll just use that example. And you did a search and you found some people there that are interesting. Start to follow them. Go down, see if they belong to any groups. Get into that group. Okay. Again, you can utilize those 15. You can start following. You can start commenting on their posts. You can start doing a lot of things to show that there's interest there. This is part of social reciprocity. This is part of flexing your social reciprocity muscles. So if there's somebody that you're interested in getting to know, but you don't have a direct connection or reason, start following and supporting them. Maybe they're active on LinkedIn. Maybe they're writing on LinkedIn. Maybe they're blogging. Maybe they're putting out content on their newsfeed regularly. And start to show that there's an interest. Comment on what they're putting out, comment on their content. Because once you start doing that, then you can go back into your message when you're going to connect with them, and you can say, I've been following you regularly. You put out such great content. And they're going to recognize, because everybody goes into their feed to find out who is contributing to the conversation. But then you have something to go with. You have something to make that connection with that other person. Do not ask for a favor. Do not spam them with business. Don't make it uncomfortable, because people don't want to feel uncomfortable and put in that position right off. They want to build a relationship with you. And when you're comfortable enough, then you can say something like, let's have a coffee chat. I'm getting into this, I'm looking to get into this company. I just wanted to kind of chat with you about your own experience and your own journey, because people like to talk about themselves. They like to share, and they like to teach through their own journeys. So, you know, that's a way to connect with them, and build that relationship. And then you can, after that's built, then there's more of a support and a foundation for things to be taken to the next step.
That's right. That's really great advice. What would you say about there's a voice option, right? Where you can leave a voice message, and then I don't think, I don't have it yet. I don't know if you have it. You have that video, you know, cover story video. Would you suggest people be a little adventurous too? Like maybe instead of, or in addition to kind of a note, just leave a voice message that maybe will that resonate more with people, you think, or not?
I tend to, so you probably have voice. It's not going to be on your desktop. It's going to be on your phone only. For leaving a voice message, you probably have it, because I think it's been rolled out.
The voice I have, not the video. I don't have that cover story video yet.
Oh no, I don't have that either, but the voicemail, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would leave a voicemail right at the beginning. I would send that message and get to know the person. But then after that, it's kind of like making that quick call or getting on Teams and having a quick chat. But I would allow the kind of connection to kind of grow a little bit before I would use that kind of message, because again, they don't know you. Try to get to know them in the best way. I mean, just picking up a call, it's like a cold call for me. But once I get to know you, I mean, I get messages every day, and I love hearing people's voices because it just makes me feel like closer to them. And
does it? So you like that? So you like getting messages? You feel?
Yeah, because there's like, I have such a community on LinkedIn, and sometimes we're so busy that we lose sight of each other, and then it's just a great way to go in and hear somebody's voice and say, hey, I've been thinking about you. How is everything? Just checking in. And it just kind of makes it a little bit more like familiar, right? Like, because hearing somebody's voice, just, you know, there's something special about that. Yeah. I really like that. I like that, that tool. Yeah.
How about this now with cover stories? So people may not know, would you like to tell people about cover stories? Because then I want to ask like a follow-up with cover stories and having that video. Can you use that to kind of introduce yourself to people?
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing a lot of creative ways. I don't have that yet, so I haven't been able to kind of like really experiment with it and see how I feel about it. But of course, it's another way. It's like a video resume, right? Like, I think the more that we can kind of stand out, and that's a way to stand out. It's not typical. It's something different. So I kind of like it. I just haven't had a chance to experiment with it. The other thing that I noticed people doing is, there's a little voice possibility to repeat your name. So you could, somebody can go on your name and learn the correct pronunciation of your name. So I think it's either 20 or 30 seconds. But people are actually saying, hi, I'm Shelly Elsliger, your local LinkedIn trainer. And they're actually, And
I like that.
So when you press on it, not only are they getting your name because you're pronouncing it, but they're getting that little bit about you. And I thought that was really, really interesting as well. So there are lots of different things you can do to stand out. So I like those features. They're not going to be for everybody, but I think they're nice to have, because for people that really connect with those like I'm an extrovert, so I connect with things like that. I don't like it to be too, I like there to be diversity in the way that I introduce myself and tell my story, because I think people are going to pick up on different things. Some people like the billboard, some people like to hear my voice, some people like to, they'd rather look at my resume. Some people like read my story and they'll hit the more button, which you want, by the way, because it helps with the algorithm. But they're going to read all my story and then they're going to come back. Like the other day, so I love, Mind Valley and the School of Greatness, and I'm connected with those people like Lewis Hose and all of those people. So this woman reaches out to me the other day for a connection request, and she said, if it's not Mind Valley, it's the School of Greatness. And she went down and she goes, and that's why we should connect. And she must have listed about 6 or 7 things, and firewalking, because I'm a firewalker.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those. I'm not familiar with those. What are they?
Oh, so they're podcasts. So Mind Valley's a podcast,
okay.
and the School of Greatness is a podcast, and I'm connected with those people, and they're my 2 walking buddies. So when I walk, I'm either listening to one or the other. But I had it, and I think I made a post about it, and she made a note of these things that were important to me, and firewalking. So she put, whether it's the School of Greatness or Mind Valley or walking on fire, this is why we should meet. And I thought that was really interesting because we really didn't have a lot of connections in common. And, we're not in the same field, but the fact that she took the time to get to know me to that level before she wrote that connection request, she was immediate in.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting. So whether it's an alumni, you share the same podcast interest, for people, you need that connection, right? So that helps. That helps, makes it, kind of an icebreaker and feeling comfortable.
Well, you got to liken it to, you should always be asking yourself, what would you do in a regular networking event? So if we had a face-to-face networking event, you're not going to connect with everybody there. You're going to connect with the people you were meant to connect with. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. And it's usually based on something more personal. You might take it to the professional level. But in reality, what makes conversation usually grow between 2 people or 3 people or whatever is because there's a commonality, and usually it's personal. Mm-hmm. So you got to think of the same thing when you get on LinkedIn, because it's just a different form of networking. You don't have to connect with everybody, but there are people that you were meant to connect with.
Are there other things that maybe people aren't aware of on the platform that they should utilize, or other social media platforms that you'd suggest, whether Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, that you would say, hey, if you're looking for a job or you're just looking to advance your career, here's like a feature on LinkedIn, or hey, maybe this is what you should do on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram?
Well, I don't really use the other platforms for job search. I use that more for the social, like not to say like big companies, and practically all companies have a place on there, but they use that as a gathering spot. So if they have a Facebook page, it's usually because they can get people going there and access people because it's so social. But when they're deciding on you for a job and using LinkedIn Recruiter and searching public profiles, they're trying to find a holistic representation of you in relation to career or a job, or just talking about like for a recruiter in a recruiter kind of sense. So in terms of LinkedIn, there are a few things that people don't know or don't remember or don't do. So number one, if they are posting on LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is going to be really important. So if your LinkedIn profile is not built, it can take away from your credibility. And that's why they have, if you see when you're applying for a job, they have in apply, they use your profile mainly to assess your qualifications for the job. So it's really important that you have everything from your top fold, which I call your billboard, to your information, right down to your profile, that you have everything really, really built. The second thing is that it's not built like a resume. The resume has its own job. LinkedIn profile has its own job. So you want to create a story and make it compelling and catchy, because they're not going to LinkedIn to find the same things that they would for a resume. They're going to LinkedIn to find more about you. Third of all, a lot of people don't customize certain things on their LinkedIn profile. They accept what LinkedIn has given them. I call that living the LinkedIn default life. And who really wants to live the LinkedIn default life? There are certain things on LinkedIn that you can customize, and that should be, without a doubt, something that you do. Like the billboard. You don't want a gray and white or gray and blue background that LinkedIn has given you. This is your billboard. It's supposed to speak your brand. So I would customize that. Customize your URL so you can market it everywhere. Customize your recommendation requests. Like customize like every single thing that LinkedIn gives you. Customize your branding statement, or I like to call it branding statement, but it's your tagline. Otherwise, it'll just be your title. And nobody's looking for titles. They're looking to know the person behind the title. So those are just some of the areas that you can customize. So for me, customize as many areas that you can and make it your own. I think that that's really, really, really important. The other thing that people don't realize is that LinkedIn works with a search algorithm. So when recruiters are putting in keywords and trying to find your profile, there are 4 key areas within your profile that you definitely have to build. And number 1 would be your tagline. 2 would be the about section. 3rd is the experience section. And the 4th is the skills section. So all of those are create that search algorithm that recruiters are using to find specific profiles when they're looking for jobs. So those are just a few of the things that I think are important. Also, social recognition is important. So have those recommendations up there, because people do think about what other people say about you. It's important. That's why people ask for references when you know they're thinking about recruiting you. I mean, references are important, so it works the same thing on LinkedIn. It's good to have some recommendations or testimonials, just to show what the experience that other people had working with you.
This is true. Now I've noticed, speaking of features, maybe coincidence, but I see more people without a photo than it used to be. Have you noticed that, or is that just something
I haven't noticed it too much, but I don't accept profiles without pictures. So
I'll see it. Well, I'll see it because as a recruiter, you know, and I'm working on whatever assignment I'm working on, I'm going to kind of look and, you know, see people who I don't know. You know, I'm looking at trying to find, would this person be good for the job? It just seems to be more, you know, people than before don't have it. And it's interesting. I've spoken to a few people, particularly women, and and the topic came up and they felt they didn't have a photo because guys would be all creepy and then message them. And they felt, you know what, I'm just not going to have a photo at all. And that kind of plays into, I know that you're very keen on, you know, kindness and not bullying. And what do you, I wasn't aware until someone told me that. I was kind of shocked. Maybe I'm a little naive and dumb that I didn't realize, because I figured, why are you going to be, you know, I mean, Twitter, I could understand maybe, Facebook, yeah, but LinkedIn, like, why would you be all creepy and stuff? But I guess you find that out. I guess that's naive.
Creeps are everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
But you have to control your spot anywhere. This is a networking site. So again, you would not go to a networking event and hide behind the wall and expect people to, you know, to get to know you that way. It just doesn't work. Or somebody with a bag on your head. Networking requires you to be visible. So what I do with the creeps, and I've had them, I had a love letter the other day. First of all, I blocked them. Well, no, I shouldn't say I blocked them first. I don't, because I require certain information if I'm going to let LinkedIn know. So I will take a screenshot of anything. I will not reply to them. I will disconnect from them, but I will make sure to have any screenshots that I need, their profile URL. I will go to the help with LinkedIn. I will send information about what transpired. And I will then, once all of that has been taken care of and LinkedIn knows, then I will go back and block them. I have no holds barred when it comes to bad behavior on LinkedIn and not accepting it. We are always going to find spam. We're always going to find, somebody had their profile up the other day and it was their profile photo was Mark Zuckerberg, from Facebook. I mean, you're always going to find those people. You're always going to find bullies, because some people use LinkedIn to get back when they're scorned. For example, they didn't get that job, but somebody else got that. And what better way to be mean and seek revenge, but to do it on a professional platform where people are there, people are in their professional network. So it's almost like, I'll get back to you, I'll hurt you, and I'll make it sting, and I'll make sure people know that about you. It's going to happen everywhere. I was a CSI, a LinkedIn CSI for 1 year. I decided I was.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
So you were part of my Changemaker series. I do a monthly Changemaker series, and I noticed that a few people were not on the platform anymore, because I often do a review back on different Changemaker series, and I'll go back and see. And I realized some people were off. So luckily I had some numbers and other ways to communicate with those people. And I found out some pretty bad bullying stories. Really? And it made me realize that this was going on. Now, sometimes we see it, like sometimes somebody will post something and people will disagree and they might use some, nasty words or whatever. But the majority of the time, we don't see it because it goes through direct messaging. It goes through pods. So I'm sure that you've heard of Engage. So there's different groups. I belong to some groups where people support each other in the sense that we're all, like, say, LinkedIn experts, and we all get together and just kind of, oh, did you see this? Or this is not working, but it has nothing to do. Nobody's controlling me. Nobody's expecting anything from me. If I have something to add, I add. It's just like a group of friends who have this commonality, LinkedIn, and we work together to help each other. But there are some engagement pods out there, and these pods are usually started by somebody who wants to control. Just like almost, I don't like to say it like cult, but it's like somebody honing in on these people who are needy, who are on LinkedIn to build community. Maybe they're lonely. Get them into this community pod, and then they have to obey the person who's controlling this pod. Meaning they have to like everything, they have to post, they have to comment, they have to. And if they don't, they're kicked out of the pod. And then that leader will try to get people to go against that person. So it can be a pretty, number one, a lonely place to be. Number two, it has caused some people, to some very negative responses and some negative behaviors as a result of that, and a feeling of loneliness. And that's why they ended up leaving LinkedIn. So, I don't belong to any engagement pods. I don't need to. I think that if you're on LinkedIn, you don't need people. Like, these are usually people who want numbers. They don't care about the relationships. But LinkedIn is all about relationships. So I've been approached to be part of these pods. I said, absolutely not. And when I find out about any of those pods, usually the people that are trying to control or anything like that, I don't have them as part of my network. Wow. Because it's, so it does happen, people are, and, of course there are people that are going to make sexist remarks and stuff like that. You just have to be in control. Because unfortunately, I don't think there is any place that you can show up where this doesn't exist. It's unfortunate, but the only thing that we can do is take our superpowers, realize that it's there, and then if it happens to us, take the right steps to make sure that, for example, in LinkedIn's case, that LinkedIn is aware. They have people that they have hired just to take care of that. And because we're not going to get rid of all of the bad stuff on LinkedIn. It's impossible to do. I try my best to do that. That's one of the reasons I started up the Decide to Be Kind campaign, was for people to unite and say, we don't accept it. We're taking the route of kindness. And I'm really proud that I've done that. It's been a year and 4 months that I've done that campaign, and people have united all over the world.
Yeah, those bands, right?
Yeah. We're, you know, I'm going to send you one. So
I'll wear it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, and this is a symbol. So they've gone all over the world. It's on my website, and it's basically to symbolize the Kind Club. So it's basically to symbolize that people are not going to take any kind of bullying. They're going to stand up against bullying. And so don't, watch out, because if you're going to be a bully to us, we're going to stand up. We're going to shower you with kindness, but we're also going to let LinkedIn know that you're up to no good.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up, because, I know you have, you're passionate about that. And watch this. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get attacked, because that's how life works. You're going to say, well, I haven't seen it happen to me. And then boom, you get attacked. But I guess, is it, if you're careful who you network with and you're particular about the people you're interacting with, maybe it won't happen as much, as opposed to saying, if you just care about the numbers and then you start associating with people who have questionable other motives on their side, that's when it could happen? Or
yeah, I mean, it can happen anywhere, because people can reach out. And you just have to be aware, right?
Yeah.
And don't get involved, but do what you need to do. Take a screenshot of everything, and don't accept shady profiles. I mean, do your due diligence. If somebody wants to, I like a personalized, customized request, but I know that not everybody has been trained, not everybody does it. So I kind of look first to see if we're connected to any people, from connected to say 20 people, and those 20 people are people in my network and I trust and respect. I also look if you have a picture, because that's important to me. I also look to see, where do you work, or what are you doing? Are you going to school? Do we have something in common? I do my due diligence to make sure that I'm creating a LinkedIn network or community that at least I feel somewhat connected to, that at least I understand that I'm accepting those, because I have a big network. I have a really big network. I have over 13,000 connections. I don't know them all, but when I accept somebody, I say to myself, is that somebody I could potentially have a LinkedIn latte with? And if the answer is yes, then I usually accept them into my network. I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know if we're going to communicate, collaborate, or maybe we're only going to connect a year down the road. But at that time that I'm bringing that person into my network, I try my best to say, if that person was here, would I want to get to know that person better? Would I want to have a coffee with that person? And once I say yes, then I usually accept that person into my network.
Shelly, I think that's so important, because I could give you a firsthand experience. So when I started on LinkedIn, I would accept, requests from so many people all over the place. And I was thinking, because I like to think of myself as a nice guy. I'm like, they want to connect. And then also, it got to the point where it's kind of interesting, because when my kids were really young, and I get, look at this, and I'll show them, this person's from the Ukraine, and look at this person's from France, and so it almost became kind of a fun thing to do, to talk I'm talking about when they were really young, and then time went on, and I'm like, oh my God, I got this weird network that makes zero sense. It was. And after a while, I wouldn't look at my feed at all, because it just didn't make sense. I'll have real estate agents in Wyoming. I'm like, there's no connect whatsoever. So all these salespeople try to sell me stuff. So I had to go back and kind of prune everything, because it just, I'm sure they're wonderful people, nice people, great people, but it just didn't make any sense for us to be connected. So I had to kind of start all over again in a way and clean it up. So I think your suggestion to people is so spot on. Right from the beginning, just make sure you have the connections that you would feel comfortable. Hey, I'm gonna have a latte with. I could, have something in common. Otherwise, I'm telling it was just so, after all, then you know what, when you notice something, then it gets even more irritating because then you see the post and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why am I seeing this? And because then you can't see the things that are important, because then you know what it is, human nature. You start scrolling and you see 10 things, 20 things that don't make sense. You're like, oh, I can't take it anymore. And you bail. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's so funny, Shelly. Sometimes when you give it, you know, people give advice, it's like, no kidding. But then when you really think about it, no, that's really important. You know what I mean? That's something that if you just make that tweak, it's all the difference in the world. Like what I was saying, to send out an invite to someone saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. You're like, no, don't do that. Here's a tweak. Don't do it this, you know, don't do it that way. Do it somewhere else. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah, because I just think that every morning the morning is my LinkedIn time. And I just think that when I get on LinkedIn, when you're aware of the people in your network, even if you're not communicating with them, you look forward to their posts because you've gotten to know them. You would have that coffee with them.
Yeah.
So when I get on LinkedIn, it's almost like I'm out for a big like breakfast and coffee with a whole pile of people that I know, because I'm right there, and all of those people I feel comfortable with, and I feel comfortable with the content they share and who they are as individuals, and yeah. So
I agree, because like if you have too much clutter, it ruins the experience. Like, give you an example. There's this guy, Dimitri, who I follow, who's really super nice guy. He's one of LinkedIn, lives with me. He places attorneys, and he always has some like really interesting content, philosophy, mindset, things of that nature. And I like seeing it. But then what happens, like sometimes when, you lose that if you have just too much stuff going on and you can't find it. And then, you know what I mean? And then, and then you forget about it, out of sight, out of mind, because then you're like, oh man, I haven't seen him in a while because you're just dealing with some other stuff. So I'm actually in the process of doing it again and kind of wading through and say, all right, I got to back it up, because you want to see what you want to see and you don't want to get, taken off course.
I just will mention that a lot of people also ask me about lines and if I connect with lines.
Yeah, what is that?
Lines are like open networkers. They usually have it in their brand statement, LION. It means that they'll connect with anybody. They don't care who you are, where you're from. It means they're just, and to be honest, I don't have any lines in my network. And if I do have any lines, they're from a way back when, and I didn't know better and I haven't had time to clean them up. But I really don't, because I don't use LinkedIn like that. It goes against what I think LinkedIn is for. So I really don't want, because then it opens myself up to a lot of unnecessary connection requests. So I don't really connect with lines.
Because I remember it was big way back, but I haven't seen as much of that.
Well, you'll see it. There are still some, especially like there are some in the finance industry, like if, they want you to be their financial advisor. That's
oh my gosh. I get at least once a day to once a week, insurance, wealth management. Yeah, it's, oh my God.
No, they're still there, but they usually have it in their, and I'm usually not, not attracted to any lines just because that's not how I maneuver the platform. So I'm too much about individuality, and I take people as individuals and I think about that first. I don't think about bulk. I don't, I really don't take a bulk approach in anything. And I say that to, whether even the students that I teach, I say, don't take a bulk approach to anything. When you start thinking about people on an individual level, it'll be much better for you.
So you got to use this approach on Twitter, because like on Twitter, I'll post my articles, and Shelly, I say maybe once every couple months I get crushed. I get like viciously attacked, like nonstop. It's oh my God. I don't respond at all. That's my thing. I just I write it out. I don't go back. I don't let myself get caught up in it. And it's hard to do, but oh my gosh, it's so toxic. It's so toxic because, and I don't write, like when I'm writing for Forbes, I'm not writing anything crazy, but just, they don't may not agree with what I'm talking about. And boy, the savage. Maybe that's the next thing that you could conquer, to see if you could do there. Cause that's like the Wild West. but I can understand for people who that happens to, it's kind of weird and uncomfortable, a little scary sometimes, because some people, and this is more like I'll experience on Twitter, you start thinking like, wow, this person seems a little, this is a family-oriented platform, so I won't say it, but yeah, you kind of, your antenna goes up like, oh my gosh, what's this? This person is not well. So yeah, I could see how you get passionate about trying to make sure that things are done, that people aren't really crossing over.
Well, because LinkedIn is no longer an option. It's a necessity for I work with the young aspiring professionals and leaders. They have no choice. I don't want them to be ignorant about what's going on the site. I want them to know that they have to own it, that they have to show their superpowers, that they have to take control when there's something there. But it's no longer an option. They need it. Employers and recruiters are expecting you to have, and not just a profile, a good profile, an excellent profile.
I got to clean mine up. Now, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of all the stuff I haven't done. And I'm like, don't look at my profile now. I'm going to clean it up. And then you can look at it later, because it's, I got to clean it up. So
I have to edit it on a regular basis. Yeah. To make some time for that.
I can't believe it's an hour already. Anything that I didn't ask you or that you'd like to share that I didn't bring up?
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
You covered a lot, right? In an hour. You gave a lot of information. See, this is why I love doing it, because this is the kind of thing where, we'll repost it, because people, it's hard to, get people at a certain time to watch it. It's like Netflix. People can tune in when they want to tune in. Yeah. So when we repost it, I think for people who are looking for a job, and see, I'm glad you were on now, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it definitely feels, to me at least, the corner is turned. You never know what's going to happen. There could be another shoe to drop. There could be another resurgence, but God willing, it looks like we turn the corner and we're going to start moving forward. And so for a lot of people who have been discouraged, there's a lot of people who are, and this is something I think Andrew Seaman from Lehman was saying, like sheltering in their jobs. I think it was him or Indeed. I can't remember where, who brought that phrase up, where people are just putting their heads down. And I saw as a recruiter, people are just saying, Jack, the devil I know is better than a devil I don't know. I'm just going to hang tight. Call me, you know what I mean? Let's regroup or whatever. I think we're at that whatever time, you know what I mean? Where it's turning around. So I think this is really helpful. So the people who are either not looking for a job and now looking around say, oh, it does seem better. What do I do? And this is like a good resource. And then for people who were looking for a job and just getting beat up and hammered and it stunk, now they can kind of say, all right, things are getting better. Let me just change it up again. Let me watch, you know what I mean? You can watch this video, get some really good ideas. So this is, I think the timing is really cool. So I think, you gave really, you may not be aware of it because you do this so often and this is your life, this is your specialty. But for someone like myself who's listening, it was like, it was like a graduate level course in what to do, what not to do. And I mean, I'm not just saying to flatter you, it would be nice. I'm being sincere. Like it's a really great tutorial. And the thing is, you're just so succinct to the point in clarity about what to do, which is great. So the people who are watching it now, and we're going to repost it and I'll share a copy, with you. So when they watch it again, they can take, and I was taking notes as you're talking too, like myself. So, so they'll be able to take notes and put it into action. So this is really good. I think really timely. And yeah, I'm so glad you're on here. This is awesome.
Well, I can't say it enough. Like, I think that within just on a one final note though, once the pandemic started, within a 3-month period, LinkedIn advanced in terms of like activity by 3 times the amount it was prior to the pandemic.
Amazing.
And I don't think it will go back because after speaking to a number of employers and representatives, company representatives, they've said that this is their new way to have those, impromptu coffee chats or, informational interviews or even interviews. So I think I think COVID has been good to LinkedIn in that way. And
isn't it weird how with COVID, you know what? It's made some companies, look at Amazon. Some companies have just benefited tremendously, others not so much. LinkedIn, I wonder if you noticed this too. You see, it's interesting you say that because I've noticed there's also a shift of the kind of people coming on. When I first started, on LinkedIn, definitely was like this, white collar, mid-level to senior level kind of folks. Now it looks really so much more open, which is cool. So like,
well, the biggest demographic right now, the biggest growing demographic is between 18 and 34.
Mm-hmm. So that'd be what, Gen Zs and young millennials? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can even see with the posts, they're different, which is nice because it's kind of, you don't see the same, I don't know how to describe it, but like if you see it, let's say the Gen Zs and these younger millennials are much more video savvy. They're not, like with LinkedIn, it seemed always a little uptight at times, but they have a much looser attitude, which is good. It's refreshing. It's nice. So I don't know if you see that, but that's kind of interesting development.
Well, I think somewhere along the line, like the hashtag inhuman, I don't know if you know about that, but that hashtag that came, I would say it came around 2017, 2018. And that's when things started to change. And it came as a result of LinkedIn not being human. And this younger generation that makes up the biggest growing demographic now, didn't like that because they're all about human. They want to talk to people. They want to engage in conversations. So this is how this change happened. And then this hashtag came about, like inhuman. And it was really interesting because the whole inhuman hashtag represented the fact that if we really want to go far on LinkedIn, we have to go from the title and really start taking a look at how we are presenting ourselves and what that looks like behind the title. And because that's where real relationships start. We start with the people behind the title. And that's how you stand out against your competition. That's how you stand out and really differentiate yourself. There's a lot of competition. You have no choice but to do that.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. Now, for people who want to find you, what's the best, I would imagine you say LinkedIn. How can people get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn is always the best way to find me because I'm on there, every single day. It's where I hang out the most of the time. Of course, I have a website too, linkedexpress.ca, but all one word. But I think finding me on LinkedIn is easier, and that's where I try to share best practices and throw LinkedIn goodness around like confetti.
Great. That's awesome. And if you're okay with it, we'll put, because what we'll do is edit it, tighten it up, and then we can put on like your LinkedIn profile so people can find you if you're okay with it at the end.
That'd be great.
Make life easier. Well, Shelly, thank you so much. This is a really great conversation. And as mentioned before, it's so timely. I think it's like the perfect time, especially spring and people in a better mood. And when you're in a better mood, you're going to hire people, you're going to look for a job. You just have that better, a good vibe. So I think this is a good thing. And for people who watch it now, I think they learned a lot. And then we repost it, they're going to learn a lot. So this is great. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jack, for having me.
Pleasure. Well, take care.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the WeCruiter podcast. If you want to check out other great content from WeCruiter, make sure to visit us at wecruiter.io. That's WECRUITR.io. We offer tons of great resources for job seekers and professionals, so make sure to check us out today.